Kyo-Gyo-Shin-Sho Chapter 2 True Practice of the Pure Land Way. Excerpts from the Kyo-Gyo-Shin-Sho. 3. A collection of passages revealing the true practice of the Pure Land Way. Passages 1-34. Compiled by Gotoku Shinran, disciple of Shakyamuni. Passage 1. Reverently contemplating Amida's directing of virtue, for our going forth to the Pure Land, I find that there is great practice, there is great shinjin. The great practice is to say, the name of the Tathagata of unhindered light. This practice, embodying all good acts, and possessing all roots of virtue, is perfect and most rapid in bringing about birth. It is the treasure ocean of virtues that is suchness or true reality. For this reason, it is called great practice. This practice arises from the vow of great compassion, which is known as the vow that all Buddhas extol the name, the vow that all Buddhas say the name, and the vow that all Buddhas praise the name. It might also be called the vow of directing virtue for our going forth, and the vow in which the saying of the name is selected. Passage 2. The vow that all the Buddhas say the name is stated in the larger sutara. If, when I attain Buddhahood, the countless Buddhas throughout the worlds in the 10 quarters do not all praise and say my name, may I not attain the supreme enlightenment. 3. The sutra further states, when I have fulfilled the Buddha way, my name shall pervade the 10 quarters. If there be any place it is not heard, I vow not to attain the supreme enlightenment. For the sake of all beings, I will open forth the treasure store, and give away universally its treasure of virtues. Among the multitudes of beings, I will always preach the Dharma with a lion's roar. 4. The sutra passage declaring the fulfillment of this vow states, the Buddha Tathagatas throughout the 10 quarters, countless as the sands of the Ganges, are one in praising the majestic power and the virtues, inconceivably profound, of the Buddha of immeasurable life. 6. Further it states, the power of the Buddha's primal vow is such that those who, hearing the name, aspire for birth, all reach that land, their attainment of non-retrogression coming about of itself. Passage 12. These passages reveal that saying the name breaks through all the ignorance of sentient beings and fulfills their aspirations. Saying the name is the right act, supreme, true, and excellent. The right act is the Nembutsu. The Nembutsu is Namu Amida Butsu. Namu Amida Butsu is right-mindedness. Let this be known. Passage 29. Further Shantao states, concerning the universal vow, it is as set forth in the larger sutara. The attainment of birth, of all foolish beings, whether good or evil, is always, without exception, by being carried by the karmic power of Amida Buddha's great vow, and accepting it as the decisive cause. Passage 30. Further he states, Namu means to take refuge. It further signifies aspiring for birth and directing virtue. Amida Butsu is the practice. Because of this import, one necessarily attains birth. Passage 31. Further he states, concerning the expression, each living thing being grasped by Amida, a manifestation of the decisive cause of birth. It is declared, among the 48 vows, taught in the larger Sutra of Immeasurable Life. If, when I attain Buddhahood, the sentient beings of the 10 quarters, aspiring to be born in my land, saying my name, even down to 10 times, and being carried by the power of my vow, were not to be born there, then may I not attain the supreme enlightenment. This means that practicers who aspire to be born are grasped by the power of the vow, and brought to attainment of birth, when their lives end. Hence the expression, each living thing being grasped by Amida, a manifestation of the decisive cause of birth. Passage 34. From these passages, we see that the word Namu means to take refuge. In the term to take refuge, Kimyo, ki means to arrive at. Further, it is used in compounds to mean to yield joyfully to, kietsu, and to take shelter. In Kisai, Maya means to act, to invite, to command, to teach, path, message, to devise, to summon. Thus, Kimyo is the command of the primal vow, calling to, and summoning us. Aspiring for birth, and directing virtue, indicates the mind of the Tathagata, who, having already established the vow, gives sentient beings the practice necessary for their birth. The practice is the selected primal vow. One necessarily attains birth, elucidates the attainment of the stage of non-retrogression. Concerning this, the larger sutra states, immediately attains, and Nagarjuna's commentary, definitely settled, immediately, reveals the ultimate brevity of the instant, in which the true cause of one's birth in the fulfilled land becomes definitely settled, through one's hearing the power of the vow. Definitely characterizes the realization of the diamond-like mind.
Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu.
Excerpts from the Kyo-Gyo-Shin-Sho. 4. A collection of passages revealing the true practice of the Pure Land Way. Passages 62 to 68. Compiled by Gotoku Shinran, disciple of Shakyamuni. 62. The essentials for attaining birth states. It is taught that among the various acts performed by the three levels of practicers presented in the two fascicle larger sutara, some are shallow and others are profound. But the act common to all is wholehearted exclusive utterance of the name of the Buddha of immeasurable life. Third, among the 48 vows, is one that, established especially for the gate of the Nambutsu, declares, if sentient beings say my name, even 10 times, and yet are not born, may I not attain the supreme enlightenment. Fourth, the Contemplation Sutra states, for those most heavily burdened with karmic evil, there is no other way. By simply saying the name of Amida, one attains birth in the land of bliss. 63. Further it states, we should refer to the Buddha's 6 kinds of virtue, presented in the Sutra of Contemplation on the Mind Ground. The Buddha is 1. The Supreme, Great Field of Virtues. 2. The Supreme, Great Benefactor. 3. The most honored, among sentient beings without legs, with 2 legs, or, with many legs. 4. The one as extremely rare to encounter, as the blossoming of the Udambara. 5. The only one appearing in all the great, triple thousand-fold worlds. 6. The one who has perfectly fulfilled all worldly and supramundane virtues. With these 6 kinds of virtue, Amida constantly benefits all sentient beings. 64. Concerning these 6 kinds of virtue, Master Genshin states: 1. Think on the Buddha's virtue. All who say Namabutsu, even once, have already fulfilled the Buddha way. Hence, I take refuge in and worship the supreme, great field of virtues. 2. Think on the Buddha's virtue. The Buddha's regard for each sentient being, with eyes of compassion, is equal, as though each one was the Buddha's only child. Hence, I take refuge in, and worship, the unsurpassed Mother of great compassion. 3. Think on the Buddha's virtue. All the Mahasattvas of the 10 quarters, bow reverently to Amida, the Honored One. Hence, I take refuge in, and worship the Supreme Honored One, among beings of 2 legs. 4. Think on the Buddha's virtue. Hearing the Buddha's name, even once, is rarer than encountering the Udambar in bloom. Hence, I take refuge in, and worship the one, exceedingly rare to encounter. 5. Think on the Buddha's virtue. 2 honored ones do not appear, at the same time, in the 100 kotas of worlds. Hence, I take refuge in, and worship the great Dharma King, rarely met with. 6. Think on the Buddha's virtue. The ocean of virtues of the Buddha Dharma is one, and the same throughout past, present, and future. Hence, I take refuge in, and worship the Honored One, who is perfectly fulfilled, the myriad virtues. 65. Further it states: when a robe is scented for a single day, with flowers of the Parijata tree, its fragrance cannot be equaled by the flowers of Kampaka, or Varskika, though it be scented by them for 1,000 years. 66. Further it states: it is like one measure of elixir, transforming 1,000 measures of copper into gold. In the Himalayas, there is a herb called forbearance. If a cow eats it, it will produce milk of the finest taste, manda. If the silk tree faces the constellation Kritika, it bears fruit. 67. Passages on the Nembutsu selected in the Primal Vow compiled by Genku states: Namu Amida Butsu. As the act that leads to birth in the Pure Land, the Nembutsu is taken to be fundamental. 68. Further it states: if you desire to free yourself, quickly, from birth and death, of the 2 excellent teachings, leave aside the path of sages, and choosing, enter the Pure Land way. If you desire to enter the Pure Land way, of the 2 methods of practice, right, and sundry, cast aside all sundry practices, and choosing, take the right practice. If you desire to perform the right practice, of the 2 kinds of acts, true and auxiliary, further put aside the auxiliary, and choosing, solely perform the act of true settlement. The act of true settlement is to say the name of the Buddha. Saying the name unfailingly brings about birth. For this is based on the Buddha's primal vow. Excerpts from the Kyo-Gyo-Shin-Sho. 5. A collection of passages revealing the true practice of the Pure Land Way. Passages 69 to 72. Compiled by Gotoku Shinran, disciple of Shakyamuni. 69. Clearly we know, then, that the Nembutsu is not a self-power practice performed by foolish beings or sages. It is therefore called the practice of not directing virtue on the part of beings. masters of the Mahayana and Hinayana, and people burdened with karmic evil, whether heavy or light, should all in the same way take refuge in the great treasure ocean of the selected vow, and attain Buddhahood through the Nembutsu. 70. Accordingly, the commentary on the treatise states, in that land of happiness, every single being is born, transformed from the pure lotus of Amida Tathagata's perfect enlightenment. For they are the same, in practicing the Nembutsu, and follow no other way. 71. Thus, when one attains the true and real practice, and Shinjin, one greatly rejoices in one's heart. This attainment is therefore called the stage of joy. It is likened to the first fruit. Sages of the first fruit, though they may give themselves to sleep and to sloth, will still never be subject to samsaric existence for a 29th time. Even more decisively, will the ocean of beings of the 10 quarters be grasped and never abandoned, when they have taken refuge in this practice and Shinjin. Therefore, the Buddha is called Amida Buddha. This is other power. Accordingly, the Mahasattva Nagarjuna states that such persons immediately enter the stage of the definitely settled. Master Tan Luan states that they enter the group of the truly settled. We should reverently entrust ourselves to this practice and Shinjin. We should single-heartedly practice. 72. Truly, we know that, without the virtuous name, our compassionate Father, we would lack the direct cause for birth. Without the light, our compassionate Mother, we would stand apart from the indirect cause of birth. Although direct and indirect causes may come together, if the karmic consciousness of Shinjin is lacking, one will not reach the land of light. The karmic consciousness of true and real Shinjin is the inner cause. The name and light, our Father and Mother, are the outer cause. When the inner and outer causes merge, one realizes the true body in the fulfilled land. Therefore, Master Shantao states, Amida takes in and saves all beings throughout the 10 quarters with light and name. Amida brings sentient beings to realize Shinjin and aspire for birth. Further, Fa Jiao states, attainment of Buddhahood through the Nembutsu. This is the true essence of the Pure Land Way. Further, Shantao states, difficult to encounter is the true essence of the Pure Land Way. Let this be known. Excerpts from the Kyo-Gyo-Shin-Sho 6. A collection of passages revealing the true practice of the Pure Land Way. Passages 73 to 80. Compiled by Gotoku Shinran, disciple of Shakyamuni. 73. Concerning the practice and Shinjin that Amida directs to us for our going forth. In practice, there is one utterance, Ichiman. And in Shinjin, there is one thought moment, Ichiman. The one utterance of practice reveals, in terms of a number of voicings, the consummation of the easy practice selected in the primal vow. 74. Thus, the larger sutra states, the Buddha said to Maitreya, if there are persons who, having heard the name of that Buddha, leap and dance with joy, and say it even once, know that they receive the great benefit. That is, they acquire the unexcelled virtues? 75. Master Shan Tao, of Guangming Temple, uses the phrase, down to one utterance. Further he states, one voicing, one utterance. Further he states, wholehearted thought, exclusive utterance. Passage 77. In the larger sutra, the term, even, Naishi, is used, while Shan Tao's commentary uses, down to, Geshi. Although the words even and down to differ, their significance is the same. Even is used to indicate all-inclusiveness, embracing both ones and many. Great benefit is used, in contrast to small benefit. Unexcelled is used, in contrast to excelled. Truly, we know that the unexcelled great benefit is the true and real benefit of the one vehicle. Excelled, small benefit, refers to the 84,000 provisional gates. Wholehearted thought, in Shan Tao's commentary, is single-heartedness, and indicates being free of double-mindedness. Exclusive utterance is the single practice, and indicates not engaging in dual practice. The saying of the name ones, Ichiman, entrusted to Maitreya, is one voicing. One voicing is one utterance. One utterance is single practice. Single practice is right practice. Right practice is the right act. The right act is right-mindedness. Right-mindedness is Nembutsu. This is Namu Amida Butsu. Passage 78. Thus, when one has boarded the ship of the vow of great compassion, and sailed out on the vast ocean of light, the winds of perfect virtue blow softly, and the waves of evil are transformed. The darkness of ignorance is immediately broken through, and quickly reaching the land of immeasurable light, one realizes great nirvana, and acts in accord with the virtue of Samantabhadra. Let this be known. Passage 80. These passages are clear testimony, revealing the true and real practice. We know indeed that this practice embodies the primal vow, in which the Nembutsu was selected and adopted. It is the supreme practice, rare and all-surpassing. It is the true and wondrous right Dharma, in which all virtues are perfectly fulfilled. It is the great practice, ultimate and unhindered. Let this be known. Excerpts from the Kyo-Gyo-Shin-Sho. 7. A collection of passages, revealing the true practice of the Pure Land Way. Passages 81 to 82. Compiled by Jodo Shinran, disciple of Shakyamuni. Passage 81. Other power is none other than the power of the Tathagata's primal vow. Passage 82. The commentary on the treatise on the Pure Land states. Question. What is the reason for saying the Bodhisattva has swiftly realized Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi? Answer. The treatise states, it is because he has performed the practices of the 5 gates, and accomplished both self-benefit and benefiting others. Further, When we seek the basis for this, swift realization truly, Amida Tathagata, is to be considered the decisive cause. Others benefiting, Tari, and benefiting others, Rita, are two ways of saying the same thing. If we speak from the standpoint of the Buddha, the term benefiting others should be used. If we speak from the standpoint of sentient beings, the term others benefiting should be used. Here, it is the Buddha's power that is being discussed. Hence, the term benefiting others applies. One must grasp the significance of this. Generally stated, it is because birth in the Pure Land, and the practices performed by the bodhisattvas, human beings, and devas there as well, are all brought to fulfillment by the primal vow of Amida Tathagata. If one asks, why this should be so, the reason is that, were it not for the Buddha's power, the 48 vows would have been made in vain. Here, let us verify this by taking up the 3 relevant vows. The Buddha vowed, if, when I attain Buddhahood, the sentient beings of the 10 quarters, with sincere mind, entrusting themselves, aspiring to be born in my land, and saying my name perhaps even 10 times, should not be born there, may I not attain the supreme enlightenment. Excluded are those who commit the 5 grave offenses, and those who slander the right Dharma. Through the power of the Buddha's vow, one says the name 10 times, and accordingly attains birth in the Pure Land. Because one attains birth, one escapes from transmigration in the 3 realms. Because one is released from transmigration, it is said, one swiftly realizes enlightenment. This is the first proof. The Buddha vowed, if, when I attain Buddhahood, the human beings and devas in my land do not dwell among the settled, and necessarily attain nirvana, may I not attain the supreme enlightenment. Through the power of the Buddha's vow, one comes to dwell among the truly settled. Because one dwells among the truly settled, one attains nirvana without fail. One is released from all the adversities of wandering in birth and death, and for this reason, it is said, one swiftly realizes enlightenment. This is the second proof. The Buddha vowed, when I attain Buddhahood, the bodhisattvas of other Buddha lands, who come and are born in my land, will ultimately and unfailingly attain the rank of succession to Buddhahood after one lifetime. Except for those who, in accordance with their own original vows, freely guide others to enlightenment, don the armor of universal vows, for the sake of sentient beings, accumulate roots of virtue, emancipate all beings, travel to Buddha lands to perform bodhisattva practices, make offerings to all the Buddhas and Tathagatas throughout the 10 quarters, awaken sentient beings, countless as the sands of the Ganges, and bring them to abide firmly in the unexcelled, right, true way. Such bodhisattvas surpass ordinary ones, manifest the practices of all the bodhisattva stages, and discipline themselves in the virtue of samantabhadra. Should it not be so, may I not attain the supreme enlightenment. Through the power of the Buddha's vow, one surpasses ordinary bodhisattvas, manifests the practices of all the bodhisattva stages, and disciplines oneself in the virtue of samantabhadra. Because one surpasses ordinary bodhisattvas, and manifests the practices of all the stages, it is said that one swiftly realizes enlightenment. This is the third proof. Inferring from these proofs, we see that other power is to be taken as the decisive cause. How could it be otherwise? Excerpts from the Kyo-Gyo-Shin-Sho. 8. A collection of passages, revealing the true practice of the Pure Land Way. Passages 84 to 99. 84. In the term, ocean of the one vehicle refers to the great vehicle, Mahayana. The great vehicle is the Buddha vehicle. To realize the one vehicle is to realize the highest, perfect enlightenment. The highest perfect enlightenment is none other than the realm of nirvana. The realm of nirvana is the ultimate Dharma body. To realize the ultimate Dharma body is to reach the ultimate end of the one vehicle. There is no other Tathagata. There is no other Dharma body. Tathagata is itself Dharma body. Reaching the ultimate end of the one vehicle is without bound and without cessation. In the great vehicle, there are no two vehicles or three vehicles. The two vehicles and three vehicles lead one to enter the one vehicle. The one vehicle is the vehicle of highest truth. There is no one vehicle other than the one Buddha vehicle, the vow. 90. We see, therefore, that the realization described above is all the great benefit we receive in the pure land of peace, the inconceivable, perfect virtue of the Buddha's vow. 91. Concerning the term, ocean. Since the infinite past, the river waters of the sundry practices and disciplines performed by ordinary people and sages, and the ocean waters of the ignorant, infinite as the sands of the Ganges, of those who commit the 5 grave offenses, who slander the Dharma, or who lack the seed of Buddhahood, have been transformed into the waters of the great treasure ocean of all the true and real virtues, countless as the sands of the Ganges, of the great wisdom compassion of the primal vow. This is likened to an ocean. We know truly, then, that it is, as a sutra states, the ice of blind passions melts and become the water of virtues. The ocean of the vow does not keep within it the dead bodies of the sundry good acts of the two vehicles, that is, the middle and lower vehicles. Hardly does it keep, then, the corpses of the empty, transitory, false, and deceitful good acts, and the poisoned and impure minds of human beings and devas. 98. When, from the perspective of the teaching, the Nembutsu and the various good practices are compared, we find the following contrasts. Easy, in contrast to difficult. Sudden, in contrast to gradual. Crosswise, in contrast to lengthwise. Leaping across, in contrast to fording. Accordant, in contrast to opposing. Great, in contrast to small. Many, in contrast to few. Superior, in contrast to inferior. Intimate, in contrast to remote. Close, in contrast to distant. Profound, in contrast to shallow. Strong, in contrast to weak. Momentous, in contrast to trivial. Vast, in contrast to narrow. Pure, in contrast to mixed. Direct, in contrast to roundabout. Quick, in contrast to slow. Special, in contrast to general. Non-retrogressive, in contrast to retrogressive. straightforward exposition, in contrast to incidental explanation. The name, in contrast to meditative and non-meditative practices. Exhaustive of truth, in contrast to not exhaustive in truth. Encouraged, in contrast to not encouraged. Uninterrupted, in contrast to interrupted. Unceasing, in contrast to ceasing. Continuous, in contrast to non-continuous. Unsurpassed, in contrast to surpassed. Highest of the high, in contrast to the lowest of the low. Inconceivable, in contrast to conceivable. Resultant virtue, in contrast to causal practices. Buddha's exposition, in contrast to those of others. Not directing merit, in contrast to directing merit. Protected, in contrast to unprotected. Witnessed, in contrast to unwitnessed. Praised, in contrast to unpraised. Entrusted, in contrast to unentrusted. Fully expressed teaching, in contrast to that, not fully expressed. Able to eradicate evil, in contrast to unable. Selected, in contrast to unselected. True, in contrast to provisional. Buddha's deathlessness, in contrast to Buddha's extinction. Unperishing Dharma, in contrast to perishing. Beneficial, in contrast to non-beneficial. Other power, in contrast to self-power. Embodying the vow, in contrast to not embodying the vow. Practice or grasped, in contrast to not grasped. Practice or entering the stage of the truly settled, in contrast to not entering. Fulfilled land, in contrast to transformed land. Such are the contrast. However, when I consider the ocean of the one vehicle of the primal vow, I see, it is the teaching that is perfect, complete, instantaneous, unhindered, absolute, and incomparable. 99. Further, when they are compared, from the perspective of the practicer, there are the following contrasts. Entrusting, in contrast to doubt. Good, in contrast to evil. Right, in contrast to wrong. Suitable, in contrast to unsuitable. Real, in contrast to empty. True, in contrast to false. Pure, in contrast to defiled. Intelligent, in contrast to dull. Quick, in contrast to slow. Lofty, in contrast to mean. Bright, in contrast to dark. Such are the contrasts. However, when I consider the practicer of the ocean of the one vehicle, I see that the one who has realized diamond-like Shinjin, is the absolute and incomparable practicer. Let this be known. Excerpts from the Kyo-Gyo-Shin-Sho. 9. A collection of passages revealing the true practice of the Pure Land Way. Passage 100. Compiled by Gotoku Shinran, disciple of Shakyamuni. Respectfully, I say to all people who aspire to be born in the Pure Land, the ocean of the one vehicle, the universal vow, has consummated the highest virtue, which is unhindered, unbounded, supreme, profound, inexplicable, indescribable, and inconceivable. How can this be? It is because the vow surpasses conceptual understanding. The vow of compassion is like vast space, for all its excellent virtues are broad and boundless. It is like an immense cart, for it carries all people, whether ignorant or wise, wherever they may be. It is like a wonderful lotus blossom, for it is not stained by anything in the world. It is like the clear sight tree, the king of medicines, for it overcomes all the diseases of blind passions. It is like a sharp sword, for it rends the armor of pride and arrogance. It is like the banner of a valiant general, for it subdues all the armies of Maras. It is like a keen saw blade, for it fells all the trees in the forest of ignorance. It is like a sharp axe, for it lops off all the branches of suffering. It is like a true teacher, for it unknots all the ropes of birth and death. It is like a guiding master, for it informs foolish beings of the essential way of liberation. It is like a spring, for it wells forth with the waters of wisdom, which are inexhaustible. It is like a lotus, for it is not tainted by any karmic evil. It is like a swift wind, for it dispels the fogs of all hindrances. It is like a good nectar, for it perfectly possesses all tastes of virtue. It is like the right path, for it leads the multitudes of beings into the capital of wisdom. It is like a magnet, for it draws to itself the virtues originating from the primal vow. It is like Jamunana gold, for it overwhelms all the good of the conditioned world with its brightness. It is like a hidden treasure store, for it embraces the dharmas of all the Buddhas. It is like the great earth, for all the Tathagatas of the past, present, and future, throughout the 10 quarters, arise from it. It is like the light of the sun, for it breaks through the darkness and ignorance of all foolish beings, and gives rise to Shinjin in them. It is like the supreme ruler, for it stands above all those of the upper vehicle. It is like a strict father, for it gives guidance to all, both the ignorant and the wise. It is like a compassionate mother, for it gives birth to, and nurtures the true and real cause of birth, in the fulfilled land for all, both the ignorant and the wise. It is like a nursing mother, for it raises and protects all people who aspire for birth, both the good and the evil. It is like the great earth, for it sustains the birth of all beings. It is like the great waters, for it washes away the scum of all blind passions. It is like the great fire, for it burns the firewood of all views. It is like the great wind, for it goes everywhere in the world, and is without hindrance. The vow liberates one from the castle of the fetters of the 3 realms of existence, and closes the gateways to the 25 forms of existence. It brings one to attainment of the true and real fulfilled land, and distinguishes the wrong from the right path. It dries up the ocean of ignorance, and causes beings to flow into the ocean of the vow. It brings one to ride on the ship of all-knowing wisdom, so that one sails out of the ocean of beings. It brings to perfect fulfillment the store of merit and wisdom, and opens the store of provisional means. Truly we should reverently receive and accept it. Excerpts from the Kyo-Gyo-Shin-Sho 10. A collection of passages revealing the true practice of the Pure Land Way. Passage 101. Compiled by Gotoku Shinran, disciple of Shakyamuni. Passage 101. Generally stated, with regard to the vows, there is true and real practice, and Shinjin, and there is practice and Shinjin that are provisional means. The vow, on which true and real practice is based, is the vow that all Buddhas say the name. The vow on which true and real Shinjin is based is the vow of sincere mind and trust. These are the practice and Shinjin of the selected primal vow. Its practicers are all the good and the evil, the sages of the Mahayana and the Hinayana, and the foolish. Their birth is birth that is inconceivable. The Buddha and land are fulfilled Buddha, and fulfilled land. All of this is none other than the ocean of true reality, or suchness, the inconceivable vow. This is the central purport of the larger Sutra of the Buddha of Immeasurable Life, the genuine significance of the true essence of other power. Here, then, wishing to realize the Buddha's benevolence, and to respond in gratitude to the Buddha's virtue, I turn to Master Tan Luan's commentary, which states, "The Bodhisattva takes refuge in the Buddha. Just as filial children obey their parents, and loyal retainers follow their rulers, with their behavior not self-centered, and their acts always according with reason. Since the Bodhisattva is aware of the Buddha's benevolence, and responds in gratitude to the Buddha's virtue, he naturally addresses the Buddha first. Moreover, the Subbantu's aspiration is not undertaken lightly. How could it ever be fulfilled without the support of the Tathagata's majestic power? Here Vasubandhu entreats the Tathagata to lend his majestic powers. Hence he reverently addresses him, saying, 'O world-honored one.' Thus, taking refuge in the true words of the great sage, and turning to the commentaries of the revered patriarchs, I realize the depth and vastness of the Buddha's benevolence, and compose the hymn of true Shinjin in the Nembutsu." Here ends excerpts from Chapter 2 of the Kyo-Gyo-Shin-Sho, a collection of passages revealing the true practice of the Pure Land Way.